name is Hal Rahman. I'm what you call a visionary, a catalyst, and a life coach. I live and work in the country of Cameroon for the past 25 years. Over the years, I've been able to develop an organizational structure called Strategic Leadership Development. And the focus of that is to develop church leaders, business leaders, youth leaders, women leaders, social entrepreneurs, and civic leaders. Meaning, we look at the existing leadership and help to perfect the leadership skills so they can be able to really be a blessing to the population. Secondly, raise up emerging leaders. That is to say, the young leaders in churches, in business, and in schools. Our role, our job, is to create an opportunity to really identify them and then be able to give them opportunities for them to be able to be good leaders. Now, I talked about business leaders. And to really activate business leaders, we've developed what we call a Kingdom Business Network. Meaning, the objective of KBN is to be able to help businessmen run the business in excellence based upon the Word of God. He says in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 18, he said that, remember the Lord your God, for it is He that gives you power to make wealth, so He can be able to establish His covenant as He swore unto the fathers. Meaning, if you really want to excel in business, it takes your relationship with God. I mean, God is on the top of making you a success. But every success has a purpose. It's why He says in the Word of God, He says, I will give you the power to get wealth so you can fulfill a purpose. The purpose is to establish covenant. Now, it's the same way in business. Every business must have a purpose. What is your purpose in business? What is my purpose in business? What is my purpose in life? I believe there are three things that you must see in establishing your purpose in business. Number one, are you doing business or because you want to be rich? That's one purpose. Secondly, are you doing business because you want to be wealthy? That's another purpose. I explain all of them. And the third thing, are you doing business because you want to be a blessing to humanity? That's another purpose. Okay, let's take the first one, rich. Okay, what does it mean to have a purpose in business to be rich? It means to accumulate in numbers. That is to say, based upon how much houses you have, how much money you have in your bank account. But it's all about you. It's not about others. Because you realize that the purpose of your life is not just about you. But if you just accumulate riches just because of yourself, unfortunately, it might consume you. Or it might lead you astray. Or it might take you off the purpose of your destiny. So it's good to be rich, but you must transition from being rich to being wealthy. How do you transition? What is being wealthy? Okay, to be wealthy means to use all that I've accumulated to create opportunities and businesses for others to also participate. For example, if you create a business where you employ people, hey, every person you employ, you will really be a blessing to a family. Every employee is probably married, they got children. So by employing those, by creating business opportunities, by creating employment opportunities, you are actually putting food on the table of a lot of families, and you are also raising a new generation by providing resources for them to go to school. That's been wealthy, meaning I've taken my riches and I choose to create opportunities. I'm not losing them. I'm multiplying my riches, but through wealth. How do I do that? By creating opportunities for others to participate or give them an opportunity to also be rich. It's a win-win situation. But finally, you have to be a blessing. God said to Abraham in the book of Genesis chapter 12, He says, Abraham, I'll make you a blessing, so that through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Who does not want that? I love it. I love to be a blessing to all the families of the earth. When you're a blessing to all the families of the earth, you live a legacy. That's what's important. You're living a legacy, or you're creating opportunities for generations that come after you to also enjoy what you created in your time and season. So Abraham, God made him a blessing to all generations. Hey, he probably started out in the Middle East, but that blessing has gone all around the world, into Europe, into America, but also into Africa. Now, out of Abraham, we learn some skills. Now, Abraham was not just a man who was dependent only on the blessing of God. Yes, but God gave him skills of business. He knew how to multiply goats and sheep and cattle and everything. And so because of that, he had a principle of multiplication. So everywhere he went, somehow Abraham was overwhelmingly rich in such a way that the local population was afraid of him because he had multiplication. Now, whatever time you're a blessing, then you're fulfilling purpose. What is purpose? You remember, I told you God said that I will give you the power to get wealth so I can establish my covenant with the generation of your fathers. That is purpose. Meaning I'm doing business because my purpose creates my destiny. Every generation, God has a purpose for you. Every individual, God has a purpose for you. Don't leave this earth without fulfilling your purpose. And business is one major place, the marketplace, to fulfill purpose and destiny. And every time you fulfill purpose and destiny, you leave a legacy for the generations to come. And the generations that will come, listen, you don't have to create something that will show your name because of the present generation. If you create a legacy, the generation that come after you, meaning if you create business opportunities, self-generative business opportunities, the generations, 4 or 5 generations down the line will take note. There was a man that once lived, and he put all that he got into creating a legacy for me to be changed, transformed, and be a blessing to my generation today. Now, every generation must also create opportunities for a legacy that will pass down onto the succeeding generations. I say this, I'm living now for the next 100 years. I'm not saying I'll live for 100 years. I'm saying all that I do now, I'm living a legacy. The structures that I'm putting in place, whether in business, whether in church leaders, whether in civic leaders, whether in women leaders, the structure I'm putting down right now, I'm living a legacy. So the generations that come after will use it as a tool and fulfill their purpose in life. That's exciting. That's where we were created for a purpose. So as a businessman in kingdom business, you live to fulfill purpose. Business is just your mission field. Business is just your area of influence. And my God, you can do a tremendous influence in the area of business. May God bless you.